Good morning, and welcome to City Club Missoula's July Forum, Planes, Plans, and Automobiles. I am Alex Karklins, and I have the great privilege of serving as chair of the City Club Missoula Board of Directors in 2025. Thank you all for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring together people to inform and inspire citizens on issues vital to the Missoula area community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when discussing challenging topics. Some sincere thank yous are in order. First, let me thank Missoula Community Access Television for recording our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190. You can view past forums on MCAT's YouTube channel as well. A special thank you to our executive level sponsors, Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping expand audience access and public awareness of upcoming forums. We are grateful to all of our sponsors at all sponsorship levels for their generosity and advocacy for our mission. We invite you to join as a sponsor or as a member by visiting cityclubmissoula.com. Thank you to our board of directors and especially our administrator, Jenny Rohrbach, who keeps things running smoothly behind the scenes. City Club would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people, some of whom may be present with us today at this forum. Today we honor the path they have shown in caring for this place for generations to come. Finally, 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of City Club Missoula. Thank you to all of those who have participated in our forums, provided sponsorship, and volunteered their time as board members over the years. We owe our current success to you. Now on to our panelists. Tim Damrow is the Deputy Director of the Missoula, Montana Airport, overseeing airport operations and serving as the project manager for the airport's multi-phase terminal expansion project. Originally from Helena, Tim began his airport career as a baggage handler at Missoula Airport while earning his undergraduate degree from the University of Montana, go Grizz, and an MBA from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. In addition to airports, his career includes various airline roles in the revenue, network planning, and e-commerce departments. An accredited airport executive through the American Association of Airport Executives, he is also an FAA certified private pilot, flight attendant, and remote pilot. Outside of work, he enjoys playing hockey, boating, spending time with his family, and embracing all things aviation related. Next, Joel Boucher is the pre-construction engineer for District 1 with the Montana Department of Transportation. Joel has been with MDT since 2006. He began with MDT in the design unit at MSU Bozeman while a student at MSU. He then went to work in MDT's construction division and has been the pre-construction engineer since 2023. And finally, Jeremy Keene is the City of Missoula Public Works and Mobility Director. Prior to joining the city in 2019, his 24-year career in the private sector included consulting on major transportation, land use, and urban development projects in Montana, Colorado, and Idaho. He brings an in-depth understanding to the connection between land use and sustainable design and is focused on helping Missoula grow into a sustainable, modern city. He is a licensed professional engineer and a graduate of the University of Colorado. With that, Tim, I think you have the floor. You can use that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm going to apologize in advance. You probably heard from my background everything aviation related. So what happens when I start talking about aviation, airports especially, I'm going to get excited and I'm going to talk super fast. So I apologize. I'll try to slow down as best I can. But I'm told I have 10 minutes and I have a lot I want to go through. Can I take this off? There we go. Perfect. A little bit easier. So again, just to familiarize everyone, help if I turn it on. Just real quick background on the airport for those that aren't familiar. Obviously, Missoula County Airport Authority. Employment levels, we've seen record growth here over the last 20 years or so, almost 100%. So grossly growing, and fastly too. We are the second largest airport in Montana, kind of neck and neck and back and forth with Kalispell. Record-setting load factors, what that means, we're filling up airplanes constantly. A lot of you have probably seen it flying out. Airplanes are going out full all the time. Two runways in Missoula, our primary runway 1230. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That's our primary commercial service runway. We also do have a crosswind runway, which is for general aviation aircraft. That is scheduled to be commissioned, though, after our recent master planning effort due to costs and maintenance on that runway. Just a nice scenic shot of our runway after our last painting. Just some quick background, our terminal building, hopefully, show of hands, anyone flown through the new building yet? Hopefully good experiences so far. We'll talk about that quick, but just for background, our original terminal was built in 1948, been expanded over a number of years, multiple renovations. We call it Lincoln Logs, built on top of an erector set, tied together with Legos. So what we really wanted to do is plan for the future, get us a facility that could be easily expanded over the years as our community continues to grow. Where we're at now, in June of 22, we opened our South Concourse. So this was initially really the stopping point of our project. We designed this, we fully funded it with airport funds to really stop at this point. It was a full functioning facility. What happened during COVID, a lot of the building infrastructure laws, we got some additional grant funding that allowed us to progress into that second phase a lot quicker than normal, which was definitely needed, especially over the pandemic when we really saw traveler numbers increase. We most recently opened our B gate, so our B concourse, which was an expanded baggage claim. If anyone had to deal with temporary baggage claim, my apologies, but it's much larger now, much better experience for guests. And then the final phases of the project, which are going to wrap up here in September. So just around the corner, $127 million total project budget. Phase one came in pretty significantly under budget. Phase two, we're expecting a slight budget underrun there as well. Number of different a lot of local construction jobs created, as well as a lot of local contractors being employed on the project. The one thing we always like to highlight is that there's no local tax funding involved in the airport. So our primary funds come from users of the airport. So when you fly out, a small portion of that ticket comes back to the airport. That's how we fund these types of projects. And then again, just project highlights. Hopefully, as you've seen, nice, transparent, intuitive design. Hopefully, easy to navigate through the building. Big thing is that it's built for future expandability. It's designed to LEED Silver standards. We did not pursue the certification on it, but it is designed to those standards, and we are sensory inclusive certified. I'm super proud of that because I think we are the 4th airport in the country to have that. Obviously, the only one in the state. So all of our staff are trained to interact more effectively with individuals traveling with hidden disabilities. So something we're very proud of at the airport. Just some kind of glamour shots here at the outside of the building the other night. Again, kind of winding up construction on the outside. First level, growing up in Montana, I never saw escalators, and I think we're proud to say we brought escalators back to Missoula. So something I was very excited about, probably everyone's children, grandchildren very excited about. Some new shots of expanded bag claim. Again, trying to highlight our local area. I call it the Missoula skyline. I don't know if that's the appropriate, but just Mount Jumbo, Mount Sentinel in the background. So just kind of tying everyone back to the area that they're here to visit. Again, just another shot of some passengers walking through bag claim. Our rental car counters have moved out of, we call it a circus tent in the back of the parking lot. So they are back inside the building. Arrivals and departures level. Again, outdoor patio. Again, we live in this beautiful area. Let's get outside and enjoy it. But what you'll see, lots of views, lots of windows all throughout the building, including an observation level on level 3. So the last things of the project wrapping up. So our concessions are really the last piece that we're looking to open up. That'll be the first week of August. We'll tease here a little bit. We're bringing in another local coffee brand through our concession vendor, in addition to several local craft beers. I believe every local brewery will have a handle at the new bar. So beer is very important to Missoula and also to the airport. So additional gates coming online there as well. That's part of our phase 3 expansion. So the red area off on my far left there, that's that last piece. It'll give us 2 more additional gates, which will allow us to serve up to 9 overnight aircraft, which is a huge improvement over the 3 that the old building would serve. In addition, did some work to expand our de-ice pad. So obviously winter. There used to be lengthy lines for de-icing, but we're able to get aircraft through a little bit more efficiently with that second and third de-icing position. And last thing, bag claim restrooms. Again, a kind of temporary space, but we're remodeling what used to be temp bag claim into a massive set of restrooms. Those will be available here, again, probably end of August. Parking's probably another big one that's going to come up. We are kind of short on parking, partially self-inflicted due to our construction. We had rental cars occupying our long-term lot. They've recently are going to be transitioning out of long-term parking into the dark blue area. The end result of that is going to be 300 additional parks in the form of economy, long-term, and premium parking at the airport. The goal there is to have parking available at every option and price level. So premium being the most expensive right up front long term, but then also economy parking, which we actually lowered the price from our previous parking, which is now $8 a day. So if building an airport wasn't enough fun, we just decided to keep on going. So this summer, we're actually going to be rehabilitating our primary runway. Probably what I'm here to talk about today is we're doing a 127-hour closure. So this is going to shut the airport down from Monday to, I believe, Sunday evening, that first week of September. This will impact all of our commercial operators. Really, any fixed-wing aircraft will not be able to access the aircraft during this period. During this time, we're going to be overlaying our main runway, so we're adding 3 inches of asphalt to resurface, repair, and rehabilitate our main landing surface. During that time, we're also replacing our approach lighting system, so the things during the wintertime help guide aircraft in. Again, that's going to enable us to hopefully get a higher standard approach, so we're able to get more aircraft in during our fog that we see in the winter and fall times. In addition, we're upgrading all of our lights to LED. I think we have 335 some odd lights we're replacing, so a lot of work to happen, but also facility maintenance. Our brand new building just opened, but there's still a lot of things that need to be deep cleaned and repaired, so we're going to take advantage of this time to really rehab the full airport during the closure. I think I'm doing decent on time. So the last major work we did on our runway was back in 2008. FAA likes to see us have runway projects to do some type of mill and overlay. Every 20 years or so is typically when we see our pavement degrade. So we've had that on our schedule. Was scheduled actually to do that the year after in 2027. But what we've seen is a lot of fleet changes in Missoula. I put this up. This was actually one of the first aircraft, I think, when I started working at the airport. Big Sky, if anyone remembers him, 18-passenger aircraft. Everyone's probably familiar with the similar 18 to 50-passenger aircraft. Now we're seeing much larger aircraft, 150, 180 seats per departure. And with that comes a lot of added stress and strain on the airport. So I'm seeing 2 minutes, so I'm going to have to go even faster, so I apologize. Just to look at our runway, and one thing I'll point out on the top, you can kind of see we call these paving lanes. These are formed by cold joints as we're doing paving down the runway. So this is one thing we're going to be trying to eliminate with our project, closing everything at once. But you can see the surface is in decent condition, but we want to make sure that we're not playing catch up here. The FAA did say that they had funding for the project this year, which is why we bumped it up in our schedule, trying to get through it as quickly as possible so we had funds available. Really the bulk of the closure here is repaving on the surface here. I got some fun stats on the side. Lots and lots of asphalt going down over the period of that 127 hours. Overall project budget is about $20 million, the bulk of that being covered by federal discretionary funding, which we get from the FAA. So a small portion airport match. Our schedule, as I mentioned, originally scheduled for 27. We moved it up to this year. Again, trying to get that funding through the FAA. 2 options we had were rolling closures. So these would be multi-day closures over the period of probably about a month, which would shut the airport down, really have a huge impact on the community. What we decided was to opt for the full shutdown. Again, avoid those cold joints and get a much better product, which is going to be a lot less maintenance long-term for the airport. The big thing, I think, just to highlight to the group here, we did a lot of outreach with airline partners, community partners. There's never a good time to shut down kind of our access to the outside world, but we did try to work with everyone as best we could, make sure we minimized any impact, if any, to community and partners. But as you all know, we have a limited window of construction that we can work with here in Montana. So this is an average kind of daily passengers through the airport, kind of our identified project window here at the end, kind of as we're coming off of our summer peak, in which we hope to complete. Again, the next slide's here just highlighting we'll be doing a number of different support projects the weeks leading up to and after to support that effort. But yeah, with that.
I guess I'll go jump right in. All right, thank you. All right, first off, I just want to let everybody know I am Joel Boucher. I'm with the Department of Transportation. We put a handful of stuff on your desk. Joan helped me. Thank you for that, Joan. We've got just some winter driving tips from MDT. I know it's summer and it's hot, but winter is coming soon. So sorry to remind you that. Bad way to start a talk, I know. And we also have the MDT fact book. And I think a lot of people just don't realize how big and what MDT really encompasses across the state. So this is a really cool resource. It's updated. I think it's updated every year, every couple of years, but this is every 2 years it's updated. So here's the 2024 version. If you want, I have a couple of hard copies up here if you want that. But even more convenient, since everybody has their phone, we've got this really nice QR code. And there should be a couple of those floating around on the table. If you guys want to just scan that, you can actually download a PDF of that. So that's pretty awesome. It saves me a lot of talking of what's in that fact book. And now we'll just kind of jump into what we have coming up here locally. This here is the project map. It's a little bit busy because it's the whole Missoula district. But if you look up on the top corner there, right kind of in the middle, it's also on your table if you guys want a closer look at it. But that shows what's happening in the Missoula area. The biggest thing probably to note coming up soon is a pavement resurfacing job, a pavement press job. And that's going to be out to let August 21st is the plan on that. And the areas that we're looking at are Reserve Street, south of Brooks, Beckwell Avenue, from Higgins to Arthur Avenue, East Broadway, east of Van Buren Street, South 3rd from Reserve Street to Russell, Mullen Road from Reserve Street to Frey, and Toole Avenue from Spruce Street and Madison Street between West Broadway and East Broadway. So we're kind of doing bits and pieces all over, and that is, we did work in partnership with the city of Missoula to find those locations, to pick those locations. So every year we set aside a certain amount of money that's put just towards pavement preservation. So the asphalt has to be in a fairly good condition, and our goal with that is to keep that good asphalt good. So it's to keep the roads going. That way we don't get in a situation where we have to be rebuilding stuff all the time. So now I'll talk about kind of the bigger upcoming projects. There's a handful of stuff coming up in the city. Most of these projects are done, actually all of these projects are done in coordination with the city and the MPO. So there'll probably be a lot of overlap between what I share and what Jeremy shares today. So I'm going to focus on the bigger projects that we've been working on that have really been in our schedule for a handful of years now. The first one being Russell. This is probably the biggest one to jump out. This one we were just awarded a $74 million grant, and we are good with this grant funding. The plan on this is to have these funds obligated by the end of 2028 with construction into 29 and 30. So a big shout out to the MPO and the city for getting that grant application done and securing those funds so we can get this project delivered. What this does is it'll increase the capacity on Russell Street from Dakota to Mount from 3 to 5 lanes, and it'll also rebuild the intersection of Broadway and Russell from Mullen to Toole Avenue, right in that area. That's a good one, exciting one. Another one we have coming up is the Bitterroot River. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, with all the bridge talk. This is the project that is just south of the McClay Bridge, where when the McClay Bridge his plan is to take that one out and build another 2-lane bridge with pedestrian accommodability that will connect South Avenue all the way through to Lake Road there, the River Road, excuse me. Orange Street Tunnel is another one coming up. With this is a rehab of the tunnel. They're going to replace the 2 outermost beams on both sides of this. I believe they're trying to fix the drainage issues we're having as well, and then patch all the concrete on the walls and the concrete all in that area to make that good again. So that one is funded in 2027, and design is going well on that one as well. I believe HDR is working on that design. I think it says it there. Another one coming up that you guys may have seen, there's an announcement for this as well, is the Bonner Street pier removal. So this is part of the Bonner Bridge that we replaced a handful of years ago. And with that bridge, we had an upstream railroad crossing bridge that, with the combination of our piers that we needed to remove and the existing railroad structure, that if we removed our piers, it was going to cause some unwanted scour in the river and put basically the railroad bridge in jeopardy. So we've been able to work with BNSF. They've been able to start and actually come up with a plan that they're working on this summer, and the plan is to mitigate that riprap this summer for them, and then we're coming behind that with our project. We're currently out right now. I believe we're in the early phases. I believe later this summer we're going to be looking for a consultant to come on that, to work on that project to get those piers removed. So that is something that's on the horizon, that once BNSF is done, the plan is for us to come in next summer and do the work from our side. Every slide's like a surprise for me. I don't know if you guys can tell. I could follow my cheat sheet here, but this is better. So we also have a handful of wildlife studies coming up. There's a lot of press around this as well too. This is something very popular today. So we really have two that overlap in Missoula. One starts just on this side of the Y, and that one extends all the way out to Garrison, I believe. Yes, all the way out to Garrison. And that's looking at the feasibility of just wildlife crossings. Really areas that, hey, maybe we can update a crossing that we have, maybe we can update some fencing, maybe we can really just exploring different solutions to help the wildlife accommodatability in that area. And a lot of where we're going with the wildlife and what we're doing with that is we're looking for those private partnerships. This is something that in the past people have come to me and said, MDT is always anti-wildlife crossings. And I just want to say that that's not the case. What we're doing is we're looking for alternative ways to fund this. Because with our funding mechanisms now, we're really focused on safety and we're really focused on resiliency. So anything above and beyond that, we're saying, hey, let's come to the table, let's look for grants, let's look for private-public partnerships, let's look for other solutions that we can do something to get the funding to get something on the ground. Because we are definitely open to wildlife crossings. It really just becomes a funding issue moving forward. The other one we're looking at is, and this is a great example of that partnership that I talk about, where this was a partnership. I just lost track of what it's called, sorry. I can look it up, but it's basically the partnership we have with all the different NGOs and different entities that they came together and they proposed this study at 6 Mile Creek. So what we're looking at there is, I believe, about a 9-mile section of road from basically the other side of the Y going westward. And we're looking at changing the wildlife crossing in that 6 Mile Creek area, upgrading that underpass into some kind of a bridge structure that we can actually funnel the elk and get them crossing there safely. Also looking at different areas of wildlife fencing for that as well. And that is also something that we'll be looking at partnership to come up with funding for that. Something else that's really exciting that's coming up is WASHTO. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that, but this is the Western Alliance of State Highway Transportation, what is it? Officials. Okay, there we go. Every time, oh, it's up there. Perfect. I was like, every time it comes up, I'm like, I don't know. It's Western something. But I believe it's the 18 Western states that come together. And with this, what we do is we're able to bring them all here to Missoula. It's going to be really exciting. So it starts on Sunday and it goes through Wednesday. And what this is we're going to just come together, and it's a design conference. I've actually never been to one, so I'm really excited to host one this weekend. But we get to come together. They're going to explore some projects, take a look at some other projects that we finished here in Missoula, and really just be able to not only see the projects and do engineering things, which are always so fun, but really just explore Missoula and just explore the community here, which is very exciting. So really looking forward to that. That's going to be a great week. Looking at about 700 plus attendees downtown Missoula. So if you don't like crowds, you know where not to go, right? But I'd say come on down because we're all nice people. There's a handful more projects I have on here, but I didn't leave a whole lot of time because I think Jeremy's going to talk about a lot of them. So I'll touch on them real fast. We've got the Transform Brooks that we were looking at, and this is exploring a bus rapid transit downtown Missoula up and down Brooks. We've got the Broadway Tool intersection. That's another project that the city of Missoula is developing, looking at different solutions for that intersection on Broadway and Tool. We've got the Downtown Sam. That's also they're developing. I don't know exactly where they're at in that project. They're looking at construction the next couple of years here, right? 27. So construction 27 on that one. And I don't want to steal his thunder, like I said, so. Yes. And then we have the Reserve Street Safety Action Plan, the Russell Street lighting, and there's also a pilot project with the traffic signals as well, too. So there's a lot of other things going on with the partnership of Missoula, but overall, that's about all I have. So I'm sure Jeremy will kind of pick up from there, and I'm sure you're going to talk about some of those as well, right? So I'm out of time. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks for the lead up, Joel. So I'm Jeremy Keene. I'm the Director for Public Works with the city. And like Joel said, we do a lot of work with MDT. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of overlap in the work we're doing. So it's a really great relationship to make sure that we do these projects effectively and in good coordination. So you got to Missoula. You you made your way to town, and now how do you get around, and what's with all the bike lanes? This is kind of the problem that we're working on. This is our challenge. Is, in the next 25 years, we're expected to grow by 56,000 more people. And this is the map of what our roads would look like if we don't do anything. It's all the red is your congestion, and orange is getting to be congested. And so this is a really typical scenario for a lot of cities as they grow. As you continue to lack the capacity to move all the cars that are trying to get around. And new roads are expensive. So in our long-range transportation plan, we have $788 million of projects identified, and we'll only realistically be able to build about a third of those in that 25-year period. So the graphic over there on the left is we have about $293 million programmed. That's what we expect to have funding for and what we expect to be able to build in that 25-year period. And it includes a wide range of projects. It's road and bridge projects. These are major reconstruction projects like Russell Street, and there's complete street projects, which are adding curb and sidewalk to our existing streets. Active transportation, which is bike lanes and bike paths, sidewalks, and then safety, which is identified like spot improvements for safety projects. And just as a caveat, safety is part of everything we do. Every one of these projects will address safety issues. That's one of the core things that we're trying to focus on when we do transportation. But you can see there's a lot that doesn't get done. And transportation solutions are complicated. This is kind of the classic, if you build it, they will come scenario. And when we built Reserve Street in the mid-90s, we designed the road for 20 years, and then we used up all the capacity in about 7. And that's a pretty common scenario. You add more lanes, it makes it easier for people to drive, and you end up right back where you were. So this is kind of what's happening. Demand exceeds capacity, you build the lanes, more people drive, and then you're right back to being over capacity on the road. So this is kind of the classic problem that traffic engineers have been trying to solve for 70 years, and nobody's been able to figure it out. We're really dealing with two problems. We can't afford it, and wider roads really aren't the solution. And wider roads tend to divide communities. They use up valuable land, and they rarely result in better safety. So this is what we're trying to do in Missoula. This is our focus. Is we're looking at multimodal options, and we know that we're still going to drive. Full disclosure, I drove today. I didn't want to arrive all sweaty, and but most days I ride my bike when the weather's nice, and I really appreciate having that option. I think it's great to be able to ride my bike when I can, and I drive my car when I can't. Not everybody has that option. I think that's important. Some people can't physically ride their bike or walk, and they need to drive, and other people can't afford to drive, and so they're using the bus or bike or walking as their primary mode of transportation. And so what our goal is to really just make those options easier, to give people the option. And if we're able to do that, it's a way that we can preserve capacity on our roads, and we can extend the life of that system. And these tend to be relatively inexpensive compared to major road construction. And just to put that in perspective, the Russell Street project that Joel talked about, when we're all done, that'll be north of $100 million. Well north of $100 million, and it'll take us almost 30 years to get it done. So those projects are really, once in a generation type of projects. We can't do them all the time. We can't do them everywhere. The other piece of this is compact neighborhoods. We're looking at our land use because what we recognize is that if people can make shorter trips, they can make those trips more easily by other modes, walking and biking, taking the bus. So this idea of a 20-minute neighborhood is that you can get get all of your everyday needs within a 20-minute trip without the use of a car. So here's what we're working on. There's about 31 projects on this screen right now that the city is working on, not including a lot of the ones that Joel mentioned that are MDT-led projects. And what's in green there is the projects we're under construction this summer or completing construction. In the middle is our FY26 funding request. So these are the new projects that are coming on with funding to be constructed next year or in the next few years. And then in the blue is the longer term next 5 years list of projects. And I won't try to talk about every one of them, but you can see we're working on a lot. And it's a variety of projects from small sidewalk projects to large intersection projects and major reconstructions. So just to highlight a few of them, the Orange Craig traffic signal is starting construction. We're going to have that underway here and complete by this fall. So this will create an important link between Russell Street and Orange and really improve safety at that intersection. We are also constructing the Scott and Phillips roundabout. I'm sure many of you have discovered that the bridge is closed, and that is under construction. We're working hard to get that done in 45 days. So this is one of those situations, kind of like Tim described, where you have to decide, are we going to do this project over a long period of time and sort of extend the pain, or do we just pull the Band-Aid off and get it done as quick as we can? And what we decided here was to try to get it done during the summer school break, because once school is back in session, that becomes a lot more impactful on everybody trying to get to Lowell School. So it's inconvenient now. It's going to be a really nice safety improvement. That intersection will function a lot better for cars and also be safer for everybody else that's walking or biking. A couple projects that are coming up. South Avenue improvements. We got a grant to improve South Avenue with curb and sidewalk, bike facilities, and a turn lane. And we'll look to construct that in 2027. That goes from Reserve Street all the way out to Clements Road. We're partnering with the county on that because a portion of that is in the county. We're also looking at, as Joel mentioned, the Broadway-California Tool intersection. We expect this will be under construction either 26 or 27. And this is an intersection improvement project where we're going to go back and take a look at that signal, try to make it function a little bit better for traffic and also make it safer for pedestrians to get across. Broadway is one of those streets that's really hard to cross if you're on foot, and creates a barrier for the neighborhood and the ability to get across and access things like the riverfront trails. We've identified this as a roundabout in a lot of our planning documents, but we're looking at signal options too, because we want to make sure that whatever we choose is the best option for all the users. Joel mentioned Russell Street. I won't go into detail on that one, but major project for Missoula, long time coming, really important for that whole area and for our overall transportation system. Downtown Sam, this one's been real prominent in the news and is a big project for downtown. It improves a lot of the basic infrastructure in downtown, just kind of basic things like streetlights and pavement, but it also will rework Higgins Avenue to create a bike lane that connects all the way down to Brooks, convert Front and Main back to two-way traffic, it really improve access to the Riverfront Trail system, including a ramp off of the Bear Tracks Bridge down to Karis Park that'll be ADA accessible, and signal optimization in downtown. And so that'll allow all of those signals in downtown to coordinate and function better. And the Brooks Corridor. So this is kind of the future vision. We do long-range planning on things like this. We just completed an analysis and a conceptual design to look at how we'd serve the Brooks Corridor with bus and with better multimodal facilities, and also encourage economic development, redevelopment in that Midtown area. That's what I've got. I'm happy to answer questions. For more information, go to our Engage Missoula page. There's a lot of good information there. And you can also visit our Public Works and Mobility website for specific project information. Thanks.
All right, thanks everybody for your presentations. Right now we're going to break for about 10 minutes. This is the table talk portion of our program. If you're not familiar with how that works here at City Club, is you'll discuss amongst everybody at your table and formulate a question to ask. Okay, so we will have two board members. We'll have Dave and Eric will be walking around the room with their microphones. Just a reminder, keep your questions respectful, keep them short, avoid making statements, and avoid the multi-part questions. All right, so if our panel is almost back together. Here we go. And go ahead. When you're ready, just raise your hand, and we'll be around with a microphone.
Jim Noon. Question on the long-range planning for the airport. We had a lot of meetings, looked at 2 runways, we had public hearing, and we've heard nothing since.
Great question. So what you're referencing is our master planning effort. So this has been probably about a 2-year effort. So every 5 to 10 years at the airport, we go through really our long-range planning exercise. Similar to a lot of other entities, we're trying to look out in the future, trying to predict what's going to happen as best we can and make sure that we're prepared with appropriate infrastructure when we're ready for that. Through this last exercise, I mentioned we have a crosswind runway at the airport. Just the way the wind patterns have shifted in Missoula Valley over the years is no longer eligible for federal funding. So the airport recommended through that master planning process that runway be decommissioned. But what we also have in that master planning process is a second or a parallel runway. So I believe in the plan, our old plan that we saw, the runway was located south of our current tower. It was about 3/4 of a mile, I think, from our existing runway. So as a pilot, it'd be probably about 30 minutes of taxi time back to the actual airport. So what we did in our master planning effort was bring that runway in a lot closer, so it's an acceptable distance for taxiing, but is also going to provide some relief for our GA community as a secondary runway to use, so we're not intermixing that with our commercial traffic. To directly answer your question, the plan is completed. We did have an unveiling when we opened our East Concourse. We did have some exhibits there, and those documents will all be posted on our website as well, but certainly happy to talk any more about that.
Stahlberg, as you think about routing for the growth in the valley for vehicle traffic, and we've heard a lot in the past about how unreasonable it would try to be to do a bypass. Expensive, hard to acquire the land, hard to make the land fit. Have you ever looked at any kind of expressways, anything that would use existing structure but limit lanes for through traffic purposes?
I think the common misconception about a bypass or an expressway is that it would actually alleviate a lot of the traffic congestion. The problem we have is most of the traffic is local. So when you look at traffic on Reserve Street, for instance, most of that traffic is short trip destinations. They're not going from one end of town to the other. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's probably less than 20%. And so you could build an expressway or you could build a bypass, but you really wouldn't pull all that traffic off of it. And really the reason that Reserve Street filled up so fast was because all the development happened out there, and that's where everybody's trying to go.
Hi, Margaret Parson. I don't know the truth of this, but I've been informed that there is one way in and one way out of Miller Creek. Is there an option for a second way? I know there's like back roads you can take, but is there a plan for a super solid way to get out of Miller Creek other than the one that currently exists?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The short answer is no. Years ago we looked at a bridge that would connect over to Blue Mountain Road. And that was environmentally very challenging and costly. And the ultimate decision was to improve Miller Creek Road and add capacity there. Like you said, there are some other routes to get out, but that is one of the big concerns with Miller Creek is there's just not a lot of ingress and egress. So we're continuing to look at ways to manage that traffic, and including when the roundabout was built there at Upper and Lower, it was designed that it could be expanded in the future for additional lanes. And looking at the intersection of Miller Creek and 93, where it comes into Brooks there. So those things can eventually happen, but there's really not an easy solution for a second route in and out.
Hi, Diane Hellman. I have a question in regards to Mullen. With the density initiative going on west of Reserve Street, are there any plans to widen or do anything to improve the flow of traffic on Mullen?
So there are some long-range plans to widen Mullen to additional lanes, but they're pretty far out. We don't have them funded. So really the big strategy with Mullen, with the project that happened out there, the Mullen Build Grant, was to connect Mullen over to Broadway because there's more capacity on Broadway. So Mary Jane Boulevard and England and George Elmer Drive were designed to help alleviate some of that pressure on Mullen. And then ultimately, the goal is to build a neighborhood out there that has some of those services that people don't need to drive into town for every trip they need to make for their job or for shopping or other needs.
Our question was, there was a question about a bypass, but has there been a discussion about another off-ramp between Reserve and Orange Street to move traffic to I-90 from town?
Yeah, the plan for that North Reserve Scott Street area, where Roseburg was, is to eventually add another interchange at Coal Mine Road, and I think that would help with some of the pressure that we see on the Scott Street Bridge, which you're really seeing right now, and also with some of those industrial uses in that area that would be able to use the interstate instead of using Reserve Street or Scott Street. I can't say exactly when that'll happen, but it is in the plans.
Hello, Brandon Nas. Our table we were just wondering, you had mentioned that with Missoula expanding by 56,000 people in the next 30 years, why are we, moving 4-lane roads to 2 lanes, especially with the bridge, the Bear Tracks Bridge, and then I'm assuming on both sides of Higgins that'll come down from 4-lane to 2, and then moving even Front and Main streets now to 2 ways, and then shortening 5th and 6th streets. It just seems like there's a lot of shrinking of our roads with the knowledge that more cars are going to be on them. We just kind of didn't know what the thought process was there.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. So I like to talk about that as right sizing, but it's also in the context of we have limited space. So as you know, like Higgins is tight. There's only so much room we have within that right of way. So what we looked at was what are all the different needs on that street, and one of the main things we noticed is that there's not a lot of traffic trying to go through downtown on Higgins. It's primarily traffic trying to get to downtown, get in and out of downtown. And so the choices we made were to add left turn lanes for cars, which will allow for signalized intersections with that left turn arrow, and to add the bikeways, which will allow for people to use another mode. So those outweighed the option of keeping more lanes. You can't really have both. The other piece of that is parking, right? So the other thing we could have chosen was to take parking off of Higgins and allow for more lanes. And so when you look at all the different needs and what people's priorities are, we made decisions to include the bikeways, the left turn lanes, keep parking, but at the expense of a through lane. And so that'll change the way Higgins functions a little bit, but the traffic analysis we have shows that it'll work reasonably well for traffic and really improve access and circulation in downtown. So the ability to make those left turns to get to the parking structures, to get to other destinations within downtown really seem to be our primary goal.
Hi, I'm Erin Kautz, and my question is, with the expansion at the airport, does that mean that we're going to be getting more airline providers at the airport, and will that also decrease the price of airline tickets?
Oh, that's a tough question. The short answer is, I guess, no. Building the bigger airport, again, it's back to the if you build it, they will come approach. Now we don't necessarily have to say no. I think in the old facility, we were really at a point where if another airline came in and said, hey, we want to add 3 flights, they got to park there overnight all year, we're kind of running out of options. So now we have a lot of really good options, and I think what you're going to start to see, or hopefully have seen, is airlines start to expand, add that additional frequency. With a lot of help from community partners, we just announced we got a small community air service grant, which is going to provide year-round service to Chicago. So I would say, don't quote me on this, but I think this will probably be one of the best years to travel, at least this next year, just what we're seeing capacity-wise. There's a lot of flights in our market, a lot of competition, which is the best thing for us local in the community. So I would start to see that downward pressure on airfare here over the next year for sure.
Hi, I'm Audrey. Our question, we talked a lot about all the different stakeholders involved in transportation, because not only does it involve public sector with, city, county, state, federal, but it also involves the private sector and the university. How do you coordinate with all those sort of various stakeholders when it comes to the decision-making process and the overall sort of construction and execution process?
That's a great question, actually, and it is very true. There's a lot of stakeholders that come to the table. Just example up here with MDT and in coordination with a lot of the projects. Can you guys hear me? Okay, there we go. A lot of coordination with the projects with the city, and a lot of this. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. There's so many players, but everything does come down to partnerships. And we have different maintenance agreements where the ownership might be in one, with one entity, like, MDT owns a lot of the roads cut through here. But with that, we have maintenance agreements that the city is the one that maintains them. And so with that, you have all the different players at the table, including the Federal Highway Department as well. And then we just follow all of our standard guidelines. We have, the federal guidelines that we have to abide by, federal regulations that we abide by, because we have all the federal funding that we use for the projects. So that's a big driving factor is making sure we meet those type of requirements. And then from there, then we have the freedom to kind of play within those guidelines, within those bounds. And that's where that partnership from the city comes into play. And we start to decide, hey, where are the priorities of the locals? Where's the priority of the city? What does the city want to see this route? And does that fall within, still getting our needs met as well, which is serving the general public of the state. So really my interest is looking at making sure we can get, from Hamilton to Kalispell or from Spokane to Butte or something like that, where I'm looking more regionally saying, hey, let's make sure we're still meeting the regional requirements. And then at the same time, let's work with the city to make sure that we're really making Missoula the best we can be as well and meet those local requirements as well. So it's really a balancing act and a partnership that really comes together.
Yeah, I'll just add that we do a lot of coordination, recognizing that our goals are not always aligned, that we have different goals, and that includes the university, it includes Mountain Line, and one of the best ways we do that is we have a transportation coordinating committee, TTAC and TPCC. So TPCC is Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee, and that's elected officials and is like the formal decision making for the MPO. I'm using lots of letters. MPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we have this. So in addition to the city and MDT, we have this overarching organization that really is responsible for administering federal funding and transportation planning in the Missoula greater urban area. So it includes the county, includes Mountain Line, includes university. So that's where a lot of that kind of decision making happens around how do we get these projects in alignment with our goals as best we can. And then there's a really important component to how does the public engage in that. And with projects individually, there's opportunities to engage, but probably more importantly, we have a long-range transportation plan that gets updated every 5 years that is really an opportunity for the public to weigh in and say, gee, I'd really like to see improvements in Miller Creek, or I'd like to see something happening on Mullen Road. And we go through a big prioritization process with that plan to decide which projects are we going to fund. I had that slide that shows we can only fund about a third of them, so it's really hard decision-making to decide like which one goes first. But that's generally how it happens, and it's super important that people are engaged and that we hear from from folks that are out there using the roads and the other facilities.
Hi, I'm Russ Fletcher. Wayne Gretzky said he always went to where the puck will be. Are any of you considering the eventual introduction and expansion of autonomous subscription-based vehicles, which estimates are they will reduce vehicles on the road by significant numbers very, very quickly?
Yeah, I think one of the things we always have to be aware of is these disruptive technologies, things that will really change, they'll really move our cheese in terms of what we're doing. I think the most recent one that was really noticeable is when we had the pandemic, right? So all the work we've done on trying to get people to use other modes, nothing changed it as much as remote work. Like the ability to remote into work, and maybe you're only going to the office 4 days a week or 3 days a week, that's a huge impact on traffic in a positive way. So, I don't know what's going to happen with autonomous vehicles and when they'll hit Missoula, but I think we always have to be looking out, what is 20 years going to look like? And it might not look the same as it does today.
Here we go. I don't have much to add. I think you answered that very well. We're statistics based, we're information based, and everything we do is based off of, okay, how do we best serve the public? And it's hard for us to forecast what's coming next because everything changes so fast that we're honestly doing the best we can to keep up. And it's one of those things that we're going to design with it when it comes, and we're going to change our design standards and make it work for the best. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that one.
Donnie Pfeiffer. Tim, our table was really impressed with the coordination in efforts that must go into the planning that full 1 week closure. And I guess our question is related to any contingency planning or things of that nature. And if you have to accommodate emergency, air traffic, maybe firefighting traffic or EMT traffic. We're just wanting to find out a little bit more about the plan there.
Yep, you nailed it. So there's a lot of coordination that went into that. I'm trying to think of where to start even on that. So the big one was we will be close to all fixed wing aircraft, so there will be no emergency diversions to the airport during that period just due to the nature of the work that we have going. We'll still be open to rotor wing aircraft, so things like life flight, any helicopters serving firefighting purposes, they're still able to come in and out, but it's any fixed wing aircraft. Again, that's why we wanted to try to limit it to that 1 week period where they can go to Helena, one of our neighboring airports, locate their operations there, but certainly there's a risk or an impact there. But rotor wings still operating. For contingency planning, I apologize, I missed out on the end of my slides, but the bulk of the work we're doing during that closure is really just paving. So that whole month before, we're going to be doing a lot of electrical work, and then really in the next 2 to 3 months, we have paving, we have to groove the runway, we have to repaint it in the spring after we broom everything off during the winter. So there's a lot of areas where we can expand, but that primary, really that week, it's going to be crews going 24 hours a day during that entire period to pave as quickly and as efficiently as possible. I believe we have a couple rain buffer delays on either side, but we found that usually that's a pretty good period. I don't want to jinx us, but there are options, there are levers we can pull to kind of shift their work, but getting the runway paved during that period is the primary goal.
Hi, Sarah Noble. I know that I can find this information online, but Joel, can you give us a timeline for both the Russell Street project and then the South Avenue Bridge, just kind of general beginning, general end, and then we're going to hold you to that for the rest of time.
Awesome. Nothing changes, right? For Russell, that we're looking at a 28 obligation for the grant funding, and then 2930 for the build on that one. The South Avenue Bridge, I don't believe that one is funded. I'd have to check though. Yeah, no, it's not funded. Last I checked, we're still waiting on environmental docs to be handed over, so I don't even know if that's officially our project yet, to be honest.
Thanks, Melody Cunningham. Sort of a smaller question, but we thought if ran out of questions, we'd ask. So we're seeing a lot more vehicles, heavier, larger vehicles on the roads, and we know that those tear up our roads. What?
In particular, the size of trucks anymore, specifically. No, seriously.
Yes, so trucks in particular, thanks Nancy, trucks in particular, and what remuneration do we get for their use and their tear up of the roads? As they get bigger, do their taxes or other charges go up?
Are you inferring trucks as in like haul units, semis, or like big jacked up pickups?
Driving trucks, usually by themselves with nothing in the cab. Huge. No, really, the trucks have just gotten huge. F-250.
Yes. Fortunately, with a larger tire, you are actually spreading the load out, so that's actually a better impact on the road. Really, our roads are designed for an 18,000-pound load. It's an 18-kip load is what we use. It's an easel. And that's really what does the damage on the roads. So that's where most of our designs are based off of on the highway designs. So yeah, 18 kip, so 18,000 pounds. So that's basically a heavy haul unit is what we're looking at. As far as more user fees for a larger truck, I don't know of any. That would be something that would be more politically driven than driven by the highway department. Where our funding comes from is from the tax dollars, from the fuel tax. So if they're getting poor fuel economy, there it is.
Given what you've just said, though, there seems to be a lot more Class A, Class B type vehicles on the streets, not the highways, on city streets.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Was there a question or more of a statement?
Okay. Do your studies show causation or what a remedy may be?
Not really. I don't think we really dive into the particular causation of who drives what type of vehicle. Really, it's going to be driven by personal preference. I mean, I speak for myself. I know I don't want anyone telling me what kind of car I can or can't drive. So we don't get involved in that.
Class B going down a residential street is not helping. What are you planning that residential street for a road?
So I assume by Class A, Class B, you mean a truck, a delivery truck or a semi-truck that's accessing the neighborhood, yeah. I mean, we generally design for a smaller truck, a single axle delivery type vehicle, like a FedEx truck, on our local streets, because we don't want to over-design those streets. When you design for big trucks, the streets get bigger, and that tends to be negative for speeds and for pedestrians, and so so we're designed for kind of an appropriate sized vehicle. And I think we are seeing more deliveries. We're seeing a lot more of that, mail order, Amazon order delivery that's driving truck traffic. I think when you look at bigger cities, what happens a lot is that you see the trucks get smaller because they have to adapt to the city, and urban areas tend to be tighter and harder to navigate. So the truck size will decrease, and you're already seeing that even with the delivery vehicles. They've gone to more of a van style.
Number of semis on Third has exponentially increased just the last couple of years.
Yeah, we certainly. I mean, we need trucks. We have to have ways to deliver things, and I think that as those delivery methods adapt to the urban environment that we have, you'll see the size of the truck decrease, but we're still going to see a fair number of trucks in our urban area.
We have another question.
Hi, Denise Sherman. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on the Brooks project and what exactly that entails, some of the details, and what express bus, what's the difference?
Yeah, great question. So bus rapid transit is typically defined as it's 15-minute or less service, and it has fixed stations. So it's more than a bus stop. It's kind of a nice station with some amenities, cover and shade, protection from the elements, maybe some technology to let you know when the bus is going to arrive. Often they have a raised platform so that it's easier to get on and off the bus, and those buses can make quick stops. So it's sort of like the next level down from light rail. And so what we looked at on Brooks is, how could we serve Brooks with a rapid bus system? We're not quite there for light rail yet, but a bus system on Brooks could do really well in terms of being able to move people efficiently. And so that project would connect the Brooks Midtown corridor to the downtown transfer center with 15-minute service. And the hope is that when you build these fixed stations, that you also see development around those stations that is housing and business that people can use the bus to access. So that's kind of the vision. And Midtown, you've seen a lot of things changing in Midtown over time, and I think we'll continue to see that area develop as we replace older businesses, older buildings with newer, probably taller buildings and more density.
All right, I'll go. One more question. Since you guys coordinate efforts on trying to plan out what your year's going to be like, what next year and the year after, we have 8 home Grizz games. Did you all sit down and go, we got 8 of them, so let's kind of control our traffic this way? Did all you guys do that?
I went to MSU.
Well, I went to the University of Montana, and that I think was the first call we made. And they said they were happy to bus Central Washington over to Missoula.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. Obviously, there's my thought went immediately to downtown and what happens in downtown, whether there's a Grizz game or Roots Festival or any given Saturday, and everybody's downtown. So when we work downtown, you really have to think about all the events that are happening and how do you keep those going while you do construction. It's really a challenge, and it'll take a lot of coordination. My project manager's sitting out here for the Downtown Sam project, and she's front and center on helping us figure out all of that coordination.
All right, well, thanks to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Appreciate all the great content, all the great questions from our crew here. Stay tuned for next month. We are finalizing plans for a forum on education. So details should be up soon on our City Club website. Thanks so much for coming. Hopefully see you next month.